Good evening. Good evening. Good to see you all. Welcome. We're glad to have you here today. We're jumping into a weird sermon topic, right? More than perfect. It sounds strange. What does that mean? Yeah, I have just been thinking a lot about what it means to be good, what it means to live out the purpose of God's creation, what it means to be present in this life, to utilize the time we have to make a positive impact. And when I think about perfect, I think about something without blemish, right? Something without error, something that doesn't have to veer outside. It just keeps going one pathway. It doesn't even have the option for making a mistake. And it reminds me of when you see like a building in the mock-ups when they're about to build a new edifice, or they got some building going up, and they have these drawings, these 3D drawings, and it looks amazing. It looks immaculate. Every tree is just perfect. It's all green. You know, there's not a brown leaf on any of the trees. The cars are perfectly parked in the lines that are on that architectural drawing. And you think, wow, that looks really nice. But it doesn't compare to the real thing, right? The real thing doesn't have cars parked perfectly, right? The leaves aren't all perfect. The people aren't wearing the perfect clothing, and it's just a little off, but there's something beautiful about the real thing, right? So when God was designing the world, when God designed me and you, it was this perfect image, but the real thing is even better. The real, authentic you is better than anything God could have imagined, anything we could imagine. We live better than perfect. We are real. We are authentic. We're robust. We have character. We have flaws and everything, but it's beautifully made in the way that God designed, that we would grow into our perfection. We would grow into our maturity. We'd grow into something that resembled the Creator God. And so God called us to go on this journey to go into maturity and then go beyond that and be good, be kind, be generous, laugh, cry, live the fullness of life, and invite God along with us. Invite God to be in the presence with us as we grow, as we mature, as we explore what is life, what is love, what is growth, what is loss, what is the fullness of feeling, the full spectrum of the wholeness of the world, the earth around us. So today I just want to look into this and look at God's design. God created all things, and at the end of each day, he actually didn't say it is perfect. He said it is good. It is good. It evokes that feeling that I hoped it would. It has that fluidity. It's organic. It's real. It's natural. All the things I imagine, this creation is even more beautiful. It's wonderful. The birds fly, and sometimes they're bigger, sometimes they're smaller, sometimes their wings are a little messed up, a little ruffled. But in all of it, in all the differences, and all the variation, it's good. It's beautiful. It's more than I could have hoped for. And God's intention was to create an organic creation, an organic world that would have all of his expression of heart, all the emotions, all the highs, all the lows, all the joys and all the sorrows. Everything would be mixed up so that we could feel that fullness. And God in turn could feel that fullness. When I was reading Father Moon talking about the creation, God had this intention, this hope, this desire, and he poured his whole self out. So that creation is actually the incarnation of God. That in a symbolic form, all creation and man and woman are the substantial incarnation of the living God. That all God's feelings are wrapped up in it. And even what he was sharing, he said, you know what? We have a little bit of selfishness in us. But you know where that came from? It was God. He said God had that selfishness because before creation, there was only God. So there was only God to think about. But as soon as God created the world, it was no longer about God because he found something more beautiful. He created something so amazing, better than perfect, his good and beautiful children, and decided to invest all of his self into us. And from that day forth, God continually invests his whole being into us, into creation, into bringing about the joys and the beauty of what was inside of God and making it substantial, making it real. And so God looked around and said, this is good. This is it. This is organic. This is real. It's going to have to grow. It's going to develop. It's going to mature. It's going to go through a process. It's going to stumble and fall, but in that is going to be the beauty that I looked for, the beauty that I hope to experience and to grow with and live with. But often, right, since that creation time, we see the creation in like good and evil, right? There's a good side and the dark side. And it's really this scary idea, right? I mean, it's like, man, if I make one mistake, I'm in that dark, gray, dirty place, right? I'm lost, I'm broken, I'm nothing. And somehow religion has really clung on to this idea, right? There's good and there's evil, and there's this constant battle, and we have to be wary about slipping into evil. And so what we need to do is learn to avoid all evil. So the 10 Commandments lists out, these 10 ideas, right? Don't do these things, because if you do, you will fall short. You will be on that dark side. So, honor God, honor your mother and father. Don't use the Lord's name in vain. Don't murder people, and don't steal. Actually, I was talking to my kids about this, and we were saying, okay, if you do all these things, are you a good person if you don't kill someone, if you don't steal? I said, like, does that automatically mean that you're good? And they said, not really, right? You could follow all the rules and not necessarily be a good person, right? You could follow all the rules of your teacher. You could turn your homework on time. You could listen. You could raise your hand. You could ask to use the restroom. You could do all the rules and follow them. But then a friend gets hurt and you do nothing. And they said that you need to do something to be good. You need to express compassion. You need to help them out to be good. And so he was saying, it's not just the absence of evil. It's not just this good and evil thing. It's about expressing our heart and experiencing the truth of life. And so when I was growing up, though, I had this understanding that there was a lot of things that could make me suffer, right? I could do a lot of things that would cut me off from God. That's terrifying as a child, right? Oh my goodness, if I steal a cookie. I sometimes ask this, is a 5-year-old that steals a cookie, is that sin? I don't know. To me, that doesn't sit in sin. That sits in this, they're maturing. They're figuring out. They don't have self-control yet. There's cookies on the table. Cookies are good, right? I'm going to take a cookie. Until you tell them and educate them and raise them up, they're not trying to hurt anybody. They're not trying to hurt themselves. They just don't have that control yet. They don't know what's good and bad yet, right? And so I was looking at this because this was my childhood growing up and going, oh my goodness, if I drink, maybe I'll go to hell. Oh, if I touch a girl, oh, maybe I'll go to hell. Oh no. Like there were so many don'ts in life. Don't do this, don't do that, don't think like that, don't feel that, don't say that. The scariest was don't even think it, right? Oh my goodness. Oh shoot. I got to go pray. I got to holy salt myself. I got to remove this sin away from me. And so it was scary. It was terrifying as a kid. And then as I grew up and I got older, I thought, instead of raising my children with a list of don'ts, I'd really love to have a list of do's. Like, how should I live? How ought I live? I was so good at following all the rules and staying away from all the bad things. I didn't know how I was supposed to live. I just knew what to avoid so I wouldn't go to hell, right? And I thought there has to be more to that. And I think God has a different plan than that. Not just keeping us from doing bad things, not living a life of just abstaining from bad things, but how can I live a good life? How can I create love? How can I create relationships? How can I create joy? How can I invest in this world? How can I make this a better world? How can I partake in the creation together with God? What can I do to join with God and join goodness and do things that will make this world better and have a joy-filled life? And so I start to wonder about this, right? What is that purpose? How do I move towards goodness, beyond perfection, beyond that idea that I won't ever make a mistake, but start living in the positive world of how do I contribute and make this world a better place? Because this is one option. It's the isolation option. And a lot of religious teaching leads us this way sometimes, right? You want to isolate. The world is bad. People are bad, right? The music is bad. It's going to influence us. Watch a movie, it's bad, right? I was growing up, I wasn't allowed to watch The Simpsons and wrestling. Those were the two things not allowed in my house. I think the wrestling, just my mom didn't like wrestling. But, it was like, okay, so isolate yourself. Isolate yourself from evil. Separate yourself and live, and then I started wondering, is the absence of sin, like if I don't sin, am I good? Right? If someone has no sin, if they never sin, are they good? If you follow all the 10 commandments, I never killed someone. I never stole. I don't cheat on my taxes. I use my blinker when I turn in the lane, right? Does that make me good? Right? Did God create us to just follow the rules, right? Yeah, the principle is there. It's to keep us safe. Yeah, the rules are there. They're good for us to follow, but they don't actually create us into good people. There's another step. This is kind of the bare minimum. And that's what my kids said. Like, that's the bare minimum, Dad. Don't kill people. That's like low bar, right? That's not good. That's just basic humanity. Don't hurt people, right? So what is it? We've got to have a compassion towards people. We have to step out of our way to make an extra effort to support and lift up other people. So the absence of sin, the absence of evil doesn't necessarily make us good. It just puts us in a neutral place. We're not hurting anybody, but we're not created to just live as robots, right? These perfect shiny objects that God put on the world that never err, that never make a mistake, and we always do exactly what we're told. No, God wanted a robust creation, right? God wanted us to live a full life. So in Romans 12:21, it says, do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good, right? So yeah, don't be overcome by evil. So don't run away from life. Don't hide from relationships. Don't hide from things that are hard or scary or difficult for you. But engage with them with good. Right? Don't fight fire with fire. I always think that, don't fight fire with fire. You fight it with water, right? You put something to put it out. You put the fire out, right? You fight evil with goodness. Right? Even in our own lives. I remember I struggled as a young person with some of my partying side of my life, right? I had a lot of struggles in high school. I really enjoyed not thinking about anything. And there's great ways to do that, right? There's many things you can indulge in that help you forget about the world, forget about homework, forget about problems. And I indulged in that a lot. And I try to fight it, right? I try to just have the strong will, determination. If I overcome this, I'd pray harder and I'll be better, right? I'd go to summer camp and I'd be with really good people and I'd go, I want to live like this all the time. And I'd go back home with my friends and be like, yeah, but this is really fun, and it was hard for me. It was a real struggle. But how I finally overcame it was not by focusing on it, not fighting the evil. It was I started doing more good acts in my life. I started partaking in more things that helped other people. I started thinking about the people in my life and how I was impacting them and how I could make their life better. And as I started focusing on the goodness, as I started focusing on the goodness of God instead of how sinful and bad I was, how miserable I was, how guilty and shame-filled I was, I started focusing on the love and the essence of God and what God was calling me towards, which was something bigger. I suddenly had this new power, this new focus, this new energy, and I stopped even thinking about the evil that was in my life, the sin that was in my life, and I started living in a way that was positive. And so I recognize this verse as being something really true in this world. We see a lot of problems. We see a lot of pain. We see a lot of misery. And we want to list out the rules and let everybody know how they're falling short, right? My kids will go to summer camp sometimes and come back and go, Dad, I was at camp and they told me that I'm a sinner. I said, man, you're 5 years old. You're not a sinner. I'm sorry, you're not. You might have made a mistake sometimes. You should have listened to Mom yesterday, sure. But you're not a sinner, right? You're a good person. You're filled with love. You have a dignity within your soul. Don't believe that you're a sinner. Believe that goodness is within you and let that prevail. And so this is what I see when we look at this world, we look at the problems, we look at the failures of this world. It's not about the absence of the sin, but it's about investing goodness into things to overcome the difficulties, the desire for the short-sighted victories with something positive and long-lasting, hope and goodness and love. So God, I think, calls us not to separate and just live absent of sin, absent of mistakes, but to live a full and robust life. That's why God created the world, and then he created us. He put up his ideas and his plans, and then he gave us free will. What kind of God would give us free will unless they wanted us to live a full life, a robust life, a life of choice and decision, a life where we were going to make decisions, and sometimes they weren't going to be the best decisions, but we would learn and grow through them. God wanted us to learn to naturally be good, to choose goodness, to choose to help others, to choose to love others, to choose to love God, to choose to reciprocate the love that God gave to us. It was our choice, and God wants us to live in this fullness. So the most holy life is not just something happening here in the church, but something that happens in your living room, right? Something that happens on a Friday night when you invite your friends over and have a barbecue and you see the kids running around and you invest in them. A full life that God really enjoys is when you're out fishing and enjoying creation, when you're walking through your creek and seeing the fish swim by. This is the joy that God created us for, and this was the purpose and the holiness that God calls us to. It's something better than perfection. It's something that's called goodness and love and compassion and friendliness and camaraderie when we connect with other people. God sees joy in these moments. So in Mark 10:18, there was a man that was coming up to Jesus. He was trying to figure out the in. How do I get into heaven? Right? This is a question. All religion, they posit there's heaven here and there's hell down here, right? And you don't want to go to hell. So they're like, all right, how do I get into heaven, right? What is the secret? And many religious people are looking, what's the silver bullet? What's the one thing? Is it a prayer? Is it a book? How do I do this? What do I have to give? I want to get in. So this guy comes up to Jesus. As Jesus is on his way, a man ran up to him and fell on his knees before him. He said, "Good teacher, what must I do to inherit eternal life?" And Jesus answers, "Why do you call me good? No one is good except God alone." So it's kind of interesting. He's saying, I'm not just this perfect guy. Look for God. You know the commandments. You shall not murder. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not steal. You shall not give false testimony. You shall not defraud. Honor your father and mother. And he says, "Teacher," he declared, "all these I have kept since I was a boy." See, it's not that hard. A lot of people do this, right? I think most of us in this room have probably kept these, right? Right? Wow, okay, you did all the things. You didn't do those bad things, right? And so Jesus looked at him and he loved him. He said, "Wow, that's great. I'm glad you didn't do those terrible things. One thing you lack," he said, "go sell everything you have and give it to the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven. Then come follow me." And so he says, "Okay, great. You haven't done the bad things. You're avoiding sin. That's a good thing. That's a good start. But you want to really be on God's good side. You got to look for what you can give." I don't think this is a verse saying having money is evil. Some people will interpret that, right? It's about people being stuck in their comfort. I'm doing all the right things. I follow the law. So therefore I'm good. He says, no. It's not just not doing bad things. It's about looking out for the needs of others. You've been blessed. You're having a good life. What can I do today to make someone else smile? What can I do today to take someone's burden off their shoulders and let them rest a little bit? What can I do today to leave a plus in this world? This is what Jesus is asking him. Yeah, do all those things. Follow the principle. Follow the good rules. But also leave a plus. Find a way to add value. Bring the goodness of God's heart into reality, into your everyday life. So it's like, all right, how am I acting in goodness? How am I actively giving to others? I think this is a key indicator of goodness. Goodness is in a decision to invest in the benefit of someone else. It's choosing to go out of our way to help someone else live a better life. So it can be small, it can be big, but this is what good is. It's an active choice. It's an everyday decision. I'm going to give myself to help someone else out. I'm going to follow God's word, and I'm going to invest in someone else and lift them out of their suffering. Matthew 5:16 says, in the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see the good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. Right? Be goodness, help out, do good deeds. This is how you bring joy to others, but it's also how you recognize the goodness of God and help other people see it too. Right? We have great verses. We have great quotes. We can all memorize them, right? We can explain to people what God is like and how you follow the rules. But in our actions and our deeds, in our substantiation of God's love, in our desire to invest in the benefit of other people, God's full glory, full love, full generosity, full joy, everything is revealed to others that they see and they feel in that moment. This is what goodness is. This is the goodness of God. This is what our hopes and dreams are, wrapped up in this joy and love. And so Mother Moon sometimes shares this idea of pure water. And often what she shares is that, pure water, it's interesting. Pure water is not just something that's there. You don't just have filtered water and it's good forever. She says it needs to keep flowing, right? I know this growing up in Minnesota at the lakes, right? Sometimes a lake, its tributary would get cut off. We've got like 14,000 of them, so we see them. It happens, right? And the lake becomes dead. There's no give and receive anymore, and that water becomes stagnant, and it loses its nutrition, and suddenly the fish aren't there anymore. The life dies inside of it, and the lake becomes a dead lake, right? So pure love, true love, goodness, sinlessness, whatever, right? It only really happens when we're giving to others, when we're sharing with others. Otherwise, we become stagnant. We become dead, right? And so God is calling us, don't just, be perfect in your own little bubble, perfect in your own little world, but give and receive with others. Invest in other relationships. Invest in other people. Invest in this world. Invest in creating goodness in this world. And then you're pure water. Then you're that clear water, that refreshing water that gives nutrition to those that are in need, that fills the thirst of those that are suffering. Reverend Moon was sharing about this. God set the pattern for the universe. So everything that we live, all the principles we live are just an extension of who God is. In the ideal existence, we live for others. The subject exists for the object, and the object exists for the subject, right? Right? So God pours out his love into you. Your parents pour out their love into you. Your friends pour into your life, and you respond and you give back to them. Your desire is, how do I lift you up? How can I live to give you joy? How can I make some food for you? I came home yesterday and Morel was smashing burgers and making them for me, right? And I came home, I go, wow, this is so awesome. She's like, Daddy, try this out, right? I made a sauce. She made some cool things. She found it all on Pinterest. And it was like, wow, I feel so much love, right? I was like, you should do this more often. This is awesome, right? But it's that, and she felt joy. And I'm sitting there, I'm eating the burger, and she's like, oh, she's feeling joy. I'm feeling joy. Everybody's feeling joy. It's great. So God's definition of goodness is total giving, total service, and absolute unselfishness, right? And this is that same speech that said, God started out with that little bit of selfishness that we inherited, but when he got engaged with other people, it wasn't just about him anymore. It was about us. It's about us, right? So God's definition of goodness is total giving, total service, total absolute unselfishness. We're to live lives for others. You live for others and others live for you. God lives for human beings and we live for God. The husband lives for his wife and the wife lives for her husband. This is goodness. And here, unity, harmony, and prosperity abound. And this desire to benefit others, to lift up others. When you come home and you go, hey, what can I do for you, right? How can I help you with your homework, child, right? How can I help you make your life a little easier? When we do this, right, we bring goodness into the world. This is what it's about. It's not just about what we don't do in life. Actually, that's not as important as this more important goal, what we do in life. How do we bring joy to others? How will we bring love to others? And it reminds me and brings me back to this final point is, what is heart, right? Heart is the impulse to give. The whole creation is built on heart. Everything is built on heart. The parent doesn't look at his children and go, child, you have to be perfect every day. You need to be walking by 11 months. I need your first words by 1.5, right? I expect full sentences by 2. By 4 years old, I need you to be reading, right? It's not this list, right? It's a desire to give to that child, to make opportunities for that child. It's a desire to fully invest into the benefit and the health of that child, the well-being of that child, to fill that child up, that they grow. This is the heart of God, God's parental heart into us. It's that absolute investment, absolute giving. The creation is built based off of heart, and our lives are meant to be guided by heart. Our desire to benefit others, to be a plus in this world, to bring positive results in this world. It's not as much about what we avoid. Those things keep us healthy. Those are for our benefit, right? Following the principle, that's to keep my body going, right? But what I'm here for is not just for me, it's for how I benefit others. And my heart desires to engage with others, to build a relationship with others, to connect. Sometimes that's forgiveness. Sometimes that's generosity. Sometimes that's compassion. Sometimes it's listening. But our whole desire, our whole purpose, our whole essence is to live with heart, to grow our heart, to grow our child's realm of heart, to grow our siblings' realm of heart, to grow our spousal and then our parent realm of heart. How do I give to other people? How do I lift up this world? How do I express the love that God gave to me and make it a reality in this life? And so God calls us to be more than perfect, to be kind, to be compassionate, to be loving. Our full maturity is when we take responsibility for our situations, take responsibility for the joy and happiness in other people's lives, to look, how do I take these principles and these Bible verses and all these good instructions and make it a reality that in my realm here, in my community, in my family, I'm expressing love. And so, brothers and sisters, I want to encourage us this week just to think about, how can I express goodness in my life? How can I be a plus in my relationships? How can I go beyond and stop fixating on what you're doing right or wrong, because it really gets you nowhere, it keeps you up really late at night, and it makes you feel miserable. Instead, focus on just adding the plus, giving and investing. And you start seeing these things that used to consume you, these problems that used to control you, slip away as you immerse yourself in the goodness of other people, and you start feeling your joy and your value in the faces of those that are in your midst, right? So God is calling us to something higher, something more beautiful than always getting it right. It's love and compassion. It's concern and the desire to serve others. So brothers and sisters, let's live with heart. Let's try and do goodness in our life. God believes in you. God loves you. God's with you every step of the way. And with that strength and that power, that understanding of God's love, let's share it with others. Give them a chance to feel that same love. Let's pray.